Hi, this is Brant Zwicker, retired broadcaster and board member of the Canadian Blues Music Awards, and you're listening to Talkin' Blues.
When you say retired broadcaster, you're still broadcasting, are you not?
Yeah. So I mean, the blues show that I do now, which I've been doing for almost 23 years, was always a side project, and so I guess now it's a hobby.
How is retirement treating you?
Wonderful. I highly recommend it to anybody.
No big adjustment?
Not really. As I'd sort of eased into it a little bit with cutting back on my hours at work. So I went down to 4 days, and then I had no problem taking extra days off here and there. With everybody was aware of it, so it was on the up and up. But so I basically was born to not work.
So you're really at home now.
Really at home now. I love it. Yeah.
So I presume that you fell in love with radio at some point in your life and decided to pursue that. Tell me about your love of radio.
Well, I mean, it was the old story about the kid, with the transistor radio. I built a couple of them, listening to the radio under the blankets at night. I lived in north of Quebec City, so we used to get stations like Wheeling, West Virginia, coming in on the bounce. And it wasn't until I got to university that someone suggested, why don't you join Trent University in Peterborough, Trent Radio, which I did as a writer and voicer for part of that year. And then kind of got out of it. And then when I graduated a number of years later, the guy who had been my engineer at the time was at that point the program director at the local AM/FM station. And I literally bumped into him on the street one day, and I said, "Do you need a hand? Give me a shout." And they called me the next week, and I was off to the races.
Wow. When you worked on the radio station, I mean, you said that the blues show is a hobby, it's a side thing. What were you doing as a main thing for radio?
I did a few other things over the years, writing and photography and that sort of thing. But radio since probably the late 70s. Well, actually, I started in 1970, but there was that gap. So starting in the late 70s, radio was what I did. I did commercial radio in Peterborough, then commercial radio in Kamloops, and then was asked to start a radio station at the local university, which I did, and that lasted 23 years.
Tell me about your relationship with the blues. I mean, obviously, for you to start a blues radio show 23 years or 22 years ago, you must have loved the blues. How did that love of the blues come about?
It's sort of, to be honest with you, kind of organically. Looking back at the material I listened to and loved in the late 60s and into the early 70s was primarily blues based. My favorite record label in the late 60s was Stax, just by default. It just happened. And early Stones, early Beatles, that R&B kind of thing. And then it sort of stuck with me through the years. And then in 2003, well, a little prior to that, I decided time to start a radio show. Blues, that's it. And that's how it started. It literally was that organic.
It started and it grew and grew and grew.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're syndicated into a number of different markets. How many markets do you have at this point?
Well, if you count, I look at transmitters. So you can have a mothership, and it has 10 repeater markets, which are too far away for the mothership to reach, so they just rebroadcast. So, similar to CBC. It's that kind of concept. So if you do that, I probably have around 100 transmitters.
That's pretty impressive.
Mostly across Canada, into the States, the UK, Belgium, Holland, and I've had others, in the Philippines and that sort of thing. Stations come and go, and some of them are pure streamers. There's no FM, no physical station.
This is called At the Crossroads. radio show.
Mhm.
Do you plan to continue it for the foreseeable future?
I do. And I mean, there's been times, I mean, it's every single week for 20, almost, well, it'll be 23 years in February. And sometimes it interferes with daily life, daily routines, even though it's a routine itself. Um, if I ever decided to back out of it, I would want to get it to somebody else to run. I wouldn't want it to go away. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure there. I've got a producer, and the logo is registered, and there's a fair bit of real estate there to pass along to somebody. So, but to answer your question, I don't plan on leaving at this point. In fact, I'm working on Christmas shows right now.
What has changed the most in those 22 years with your show or with the music that you play, or what have you noticed?
A lot of little things. Very few CDs anymore. It's mostly digital files. Um, the what's popular in sort of the blues sound shifts over the years. I mean, it might be a little folky at one point. Lately, it's there seems to be a lot of rock emphasis. So they call it blues rock, but I would say it's rock with a little bit of blues. So I do put some of that into the show because I like to, and I'll put some of that folky stuff in as well. And there's usually a classic cut, so that could be Robert Johnson, it could be back in the 50s. So it's kind of quite a pastiche of sounds and styles. Some of the stuff really pushes the envelope. But it's contemporary blues is probably the best way to describe it, which is not that tight a description to begin with. But
Who excites you at this point? Like, what are you hearing that you think people should be hearing?
it's interesting doing a show a week, 12 songs in each show. I honestly couldn't tell you who was in last week's show. It's because we also my producer and I pre-produce to a certain degree, so
Right.
there's usually a show in the can. Two others have been prepared and voiced, so it there's a lot of amazing stuff coming out of this country. I'll say that. I think there always has been, but it's now getting more of its due. All types. I mean, I'm talking solo acoustic blues. I'm talking blues bands. Some of the jazzy blues kind of stuff. It's big band, little big band. Colin James has a little big band, um, and it's as good as anybody's music, anybody's blues, anywhere in the world. I'm also seeing quite a bit of stuff coming in from Europe now, which again may have always been there, but I've had made contacts who say, "Have you heard Big Dave and the Dutchman?" Things like that. And no, please send it to me, and they do. And so there's more European content to the show now than ever before.
I can't even imagine how many things I sent to you. I mean, with my podcast that doesn't even play music, I have a lot of people sending me stuff. And I think, well, I wish you would do research because I don't play music. But people knowing that you have over 100 stations playing, that, you have some influence. Is it overwhelming, the number of things that you get, or
No,
is it not like that?
it's quite handleable. I'll make up words as I go. I love doing that.
Okay.
The physical or the number of physical items, i.e., CDs, has gone way down, but it's compensated by digital files, and I get it. I prefer the disc because that's the ultimate backup, but the audio is good with the files. The artists and promoters send all kinds of one sheets and that sort of thing. So it's good in that sense. But so no, the amount of stuff I get is not overwhelming. I don't get to play everything, unfortunately. As I say, 12 songs a week. I try to play single songs by a lot of artists rather than a few songs by a few artists. So it's the opposite of top 40.
Right.
But even so, I mean, there's a physical limitation to the amount of stuff that can go into the show. I listen to everything and choose what I feel is best for the programming.
Okay, so You were talking about the amount of great Canadian music out there, and one of the reasons why I contacted you was to talk about this new Canadian Blues Music Awards, which is, I don't know if it's correct to say it's replacing the Maple Blues Awards, but tell me how the Canadian Blues Music Awards came to be.
Well, essentially, the last award, national awards, Maple Blues Awards, was held in 2024 for 2023, so it's always delayed a little bit. And as a result of the results of that award evening, there was quite an outcry from the blues community, so from artists and people who work with artists, so record promoters, labels, all that community were quite upset with a number of things that had been pointed out over the years, and it's not like all of a sudden it exploded. Things like the repeat winners, the same old people winning year after year. Toronto centricity, which I get because I mean, just based on population, it is the epicenter of Canadian music. Lack of diversity, that sort of thing, and not only did people, I guess the word is complain or object to some of the results, they had solutions or what they considered to be solutions. Or they submitted ideas and why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? So basically, there was a steering committee with the MBAs, and we were charged with finding what wasn't working and some solutions. So that's what we did. We took a year and a half to get all this stuff pulled together. We talked to lawyers, we talked to artists, left, right, and center. We talked to anybody we could in the business, and came up with this idea of a federally established, what's the word, a non-for-profit called the Canadian Blues Music Awards, which is wholly independent. It's not beholden to anybody. So it's a standalone entity. And then we decided a number of things had to change. Public voting had to unfortunately go by the wayside. I mean, you look at the Junos, you look at most of the major awards in North America anyway, probably in Europe, are not done by the public. They're done by qualified judges. So the essentially that steering committee turned into a governing committee of the Canadian Blues Music Awards, and we acquired some sophisticated software to manage all the input from a whole bunch of different sectors. Set up the categories, most are the same, but we've added a couple videos for a video category, for example. And then decided that all award categories had to be based upon current releases. So within a window, normally of 13 months, but this time it's 24 months. It's 2 years because of the delay. There was no awards ceremony this year, 2025. In the old days, artists were nominated. Now they have to submit. So it takes that layer of uncertainty with nominators. It takes them out of the mix, even though in a lot of cases they're pretty qualified. But now artists have to submit their material. They can submit to as many categories as they want. There's a nominal fee for each submission to help us cover the cost of the software. And so, as I mentioned, the public is removed from the equation, and qualified judges or potential judges apply. So they have to give us a bio, and Canadian citizenship, that sort of thing. And we're encouraging them to come from right across the country. In talking about the country, we have divided Canada up into 5 sectors: east, west, central, prairies, that sort of thing. And when we do draw the judges out of the jury pool, we need to have 3 from each of the 5 regions for 15 judges, ensuring that national representation. So the Oh, the other thing is that's for the judging of the actual category. So, artist of the year, guitar player of the year, that sort of things. They're craft categories. They're called. We're bringing in societies into the fold, along with festivals and performance venues that actually specialize in blues, and they can submit names for lifetime achievement, industry person of the year, and then that information goes to the judges, who again will deal with that. There is going to be a fan favorite. There is a fan favorite category, which is wide open to the public. So, it in a sense, it's a popularity contest, which is kind of what was happening before with everything. So we didn't want to. I mean, again, the Junos do it. So it's not. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's but the public will have its say.
So if you wanted a category like keyboard player of the year, does that mean the person has to have released an album within the allotted time?
Correct. Yeah, all the categories are determined or have to be represented by an album released in normally, as I say, normally in the 13 months, which it will revert to after this year. But because we missed a year of awards, there's say it's 23 months, something like that. But that album has to be released in that period in order to qualify.
How confident are you that you've dealt with the issues that were a concern from before?
I guess the proof will be in the pudding, but I'm personally very confident. I think the committee is confident that. I mean, this was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears pulling this together and deciding, well, can we do this? Okay, how do we do that? And and looking at legalities and all that sort of thing. So I'm convinced that while there may be some tweaks next year, I don't see any major changes to the way the system works.
How has the response?
The response has been excellent in terms of comments and in terms of, just trying to think, we're up around 300 submissions, I think, right now,
Wow.
including all categories. Some of those are judges, or people applying to be judges, but the response has been great. We're all really, really pleased. And we still have 3 weeks to go for the deadline is October 31st.
Did you have, so just in case people don't know, and I will try to include this in the description, but if they want to submit something, where should they go?
Just go to the website, which is Canadian Blues Music Awards.awardstage.com, bit of a mouthful. And that will bring up the website, and then they can register and then log in. And then it says, okay, you're now an entrant, which is basically username, password, the standard stuff. And then do you want, then you can go to the artist category, or you can go to the jury category, a variety of options. And artists pay a nominal submission fee for every category they apply to. Everything else, there's no charge. Judges, lifetime, industry person, and of course fan favorite. There's no charge for that. So anybody can log on. They basically set up an account and then go for it.
Did you have an idea as to how many entries you would get? I mean, I know that the world has changed, and I know that people aren't releasing as many CDs as they used to. But did you have some sort of an idea of what you kind of expected? Also, because you're still running a radio show, so you have an idea of how many things are being submitted to you. But I just wonder, 300 seems like a lot. Does that seem consistent with what you might have predicted it to be?
Personally, it might be a little bit higher. Now, I need to point out the 300. I mean, there could be a band submitting to 10 categories. So
right.
I think I did some research on my own show in terms of all the Canadian albums I had played in the last 2 years, so in that window. And I think I came up with 75. And a couple more have been added since because for whatever reason they didn't reach out to me, or I didn't hear about them, or that kind of thing. So we figured, okay, it wouldn't be surprising to see a lot of bands apply for 4 categories, maybe 5. So suddenly the numbers start to become a little more clear. And so once, I mean, lifetime and lifetime achievement and industry person, those are coming from blues societies. So those submissions, I think, will probably accelerate as we go. The fan favorite, I think, will probably go nuts in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see the numbers climb. It's not, you'd have to sort through the categories to figure out how many are artist categories, how many are not. But on that basis, I'm surprised, a little bit surprised and very impressed by the numbers we have so far. And we know there's still some to come. Because that first rush was the early bird for submission fees. That's come and gone. That was the end of September. So now there's all the people who weren't too concerned about that. Record labels, for example. They're not super concerned. So we know there's a whole bunch of that stuff still to come. We're shooting for 1 million. A million submissions.
So 300 isn't that much.
Correct.
How long do you think it would like? Do you think it'll automatically replace the Maple Blues Awards in its the way it's perceived? I mean, I presume it would, and I would presume that everybody would just say, "Okay, this is the Canadian Blues Music Awards that replaces Maple Blues Awards," and nobody would question it. But are you getting that sense that it's been accepted like that?
Yes, and in fact, there's been no. We've to be honest, we've worked very hard at keeping the two separate, sort of not referring too much to the former and just focusing on the present. And there's been virtually no response about, oh, well, what about, referring to the past. It's the whole industry has been really forward looking in terms of, all right, this is what we, the community, wanted. Here's the change. Let's go for it. So I'm really happy with the way it's worked out so far.
And how do you get the word out? Like, is it through blues societies? Is it through social media?
Partly this year, because it's the first year after the changeover. I actually wrote to every single, or the committee wrote to every single artist on that list of 75 qualifying artists and said, here's what's happening. If you're interested in submitting, here's what you do. And just left it up to them. We followed that up with more reminders, about the early bird, and then the Blues Society's got a separate one saying, here's what you guys can do. We're looking for jury applicants, and we're looking for submissions for industry person and lifetime achievement. So that was pretty painstaking. We've got a Facebook page. The TBS has helped us out with that. And we'll have a professional publicity person sending some stuff out to the blues community as well. So I think most people are aware at this point. They may not have all the details, but the beauty of it is anybody can just in the community just go to the website, and I mean it is so full of. There's the FAQ section is added to almost every day. Because someone says, well, I'm not sure how to. Then there's an answer in the FAQ. It's a really comprehensive website. There's a little section called "How It Works," that sort of thing. So it's a learning curve, and that applied to the committee as well. And we have some more to come because there's all the judging stuff still to come. But it's been remarkably smooth. Our software people have been. They answer the phone right away. Emails get responded to immediately. So there's been very little downtime, no breakups. Everything's been really quite smooth.
Can you just go over the judging process? So once I submit for my band and submit in 3 categories or whatever, bassist, drummer, and guitarist or whatever, what happens next?
Well, the submissions are vetted to make sure that they can prove Canadian citizenship. They've included the songs in the submission. all those little details. Once that's cleared up, then that material will go to the judges once the judging panel has been set. That's the 15, three from each of the 5 regions. They will have all the guitar player submissions to go through, and they will work their way through that. Same with keyboards and horn and vocalist and album, songwriter, and video, all that sort of thing. So once the submissions have been approved, as in here's the information you have to supply, yes, it's all there, it goes to the judges. So in a sense, the committee, the governing committee, is hands off at that point. It's up to the judges.
Okay, and then you'll have the results how soon?
We hope to have the final 5 in each category early in the new year, and of course there will be a winner as well. But the 5 in each category will be published. Then that becomes, here's what's coming up at the awards show in March, and then at the awards show itself, the winner is actually announced. Nobody knows.
And the award show in March is taking place in Toronto at the Phoenix Theatre.
I believe so. There was some issue last time with, knocking it down and putting up condos, that sort of thing. I guess that hasn't happened yet.
Right, there was talk of that.
Yeah. So last I heard, it is going back to the Phoenix, but again, that's the TBS.
Okay, so that part is handled by the TBS, the Toronto Blues Society.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that over the next few years that it might actually go to Montreal and be handled by the Montreal Blues Society or elsewhere in Canada?
I personally, I would love to see that. It's there's nothing better for national representation and national awareness than sending it to Halifax, and then goes to Vancouver and Winnipeg, that sort of thing. That would be awesome. It comes down to money and a few factors that we haven't really looked at yet. It's one of several things that are in the pipeline. So I would say a couple of years anyway before we can seriously entertain that one.
Can you just talk about some of the people who have been involved so far to put this together other than yourself? Because this must have been a lot of work.
It has been a lot of work. The governing committee is at this point is just 3. That will expand as soon as possible. We'll be soliciting applications for what's effectively the board. So right now we have a chair, secretary, treasurer. Cindy McLeod she's the chair. She's Calgary-based, runs the Calgary International Blues Festival, does a blues show. Everybody's pretty qualified in that sense. And the treasurer is Julie Hill, who is at one of the U of T stations, and has her own business has a day job. So she was on the Toronto Blues Society on the board for quite some time ago. So in that sense, everybody's qualified, and when we add more people, we'll be looking for similar credentials. So that's the 3 for now. I mean, we've talked with dozens of other support people and lawyers and people at the Junos and that sort of thing. So that would be impossible for me to remember all those names, but at this point, the focus has been the 3 of us. For a while, it was just Cindy and me coming from the steering committee, and then we added Julie, thankfully, in midsummer, I guess.
You mentioned the lawyers a couple of times. Can you just give me an example why lawyers have to get involved?
Well, a lot of it had to do with setting up the nonprofit society, because
right.
it's not a typical provincial thing. This is a federal. It has to cover the entire country, and then the mailing address and that sort of thing is in Calgary. So do we have to do something with the province of Alberta? There's a bunch of other things. just trying to think. Oh, looking at there's a page on the website which is a little daunting about all the legalese
Right.
about the not-for-profit, the awards system, and participants and people who are the governing committee, that sort of thing. So he had to go through all of that and maybe make a couple of suggestions, or yes, this looks okay, that sort of thing. So,
Anything surprise you going through this process?
how much work it is. We knew it was going to be tough going into it, but every time you rabbit holes. Every time you open up a question, there's 14 answers, and you have to decide which one's the best, and that's not a negative. I mean, it's been a real eye opener in terms of here's how you do this kind of thing. Well, let me tell you. So you could write a book about it. To be honest with you, it's become increasingly fun, if that's a way to put it, as we've progressed through this. I mean, the heavy lifting was at the start, and I'm sure there's some more still to come, but it's really become a lot of fun. And the three of us have become quite close in terms of, a few arguments here and there, little discussions, but we always come together at the end. This is that we're the three of us have to decide on something, and then so it's yeah. I guess that's the way to leave it. Is just kind of it's been a fascinating process, as I say, almost 18 months. From basically late February of last year until now. But yeah, a lot of nose to the grindstone, and these huge lists. I mean, just my list of albums, and trying to figure out, okay, when were they released? Were they actually released in the period before I contacted them? That sort of thing, and of course all the banking and setting up a Stripe account, and it just goes on and on and on. But I think all three of us are really happy with how things have gone and where we are at this point.
Wait till you have that evening. Right?
I don't know if I'll show up.
What about the actual award? Has that been designed?
I don't know. That would be a TBS thing, but it certainly needs to be discussed, because the current award, or the way it was left at the last in 2024, it was very much a different award. So I'm not sure how that's going to transpire. But we'll just give him a piece of paper and a Tim's coupon or something.
It's a longer title too.
Yeah. I don't know how you fit that on anything.
This is great. So, just to recap, submissions has to go in by October 31st.
Correct.
And to do that, you have to go to Canadian Blues Music Awards.awardstage.com.
You got it.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm impressed.
Yes. People just register as what's called an entrant, which can be anything. It can be an artist, it can be someone applying to be a judge, the jury pool, fan vote, favorite, that sort of thing. But people have to create basically an account, which is really simple, username, password, and then they go in and do their thing. So
This is exciting.
It's very, very exciting. It's built on so many other things, but the committee has put its heart and soul into this, and listened to the comments and the suggestions, and basically formulated a response, which is the Canadian Blues Music Awards.
Well done. Well, thank you for sharing this with me, and I will get this podcast out this weekend and hopefully get some more people to register.
That would be awesome. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you. It's great seeing you again.
Likewise.